Fred, today let's talk about UFOs over Erie, and in particular the famous Presque Island case that took place in 1966. Now, when I published my UFOs over Pennsylvania book, you and Reverend Swope from Erie each wrote a chapter. It's all part of that chapter of UFOs over Presque Island, and you both wrote a chapter. But this was a case that, well, next year in 2016 will be the 50th anniversary of this case, just like this year is the 50th anniversry of Kecksburg, December of '65. This case took place in the summer of '66.
Yeah, July 31st.
In July 31st. So we got this, what I think is an important case, and it kind of falls more into your area with Bigfoot as a possible explanation also with this. So, so what happens with this case over Presque Island? You have, it's the evening, July 31st, and the witnesses are actually from New York. They're from Jamestown, New York. There's 4 adults in their car. They came from Jamestown. They're at beach number 6 at Presque Island.
4 adults and 2 children.
Yeah, 4 adults and 2 children. And I just want to mention the ages. You have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 26-year-old, and a 20-year-old. And then there were 2 children that are 6 months and 2 years old. So there's 6 people, there's 4 adults, they're all young adults from 16 to 26. So their car gets stuck in the sand, they're on the beach, they can't get the car going, they try to push it, etc., and they can't get it going. So a patrolman comes by, right?
2 of them. 2 patrolmen.
Yeah, 2 patrolmen. It was Ralph Clark and Robert Loeb. And they kind of help them, and they say, look, if you can't get it going, you know, we'll come back in an hour or so and help you out, you know.
Well, LaBelle went out to look for help. He left.
Well, yeah, they left at that point, yeah, to go get the
Well, LaBelle left before the police even got there.
Oh, okay, so yeah, the one of the 4 adults
he had
went
gone,
to get, he went to get the tow truck.
Right, he had left before.
Okay, and then the cops basically said that they would circle back later if the tow truck doesn't show up, and give them a hand. So, so now the people in the car, though, say that they kind of see a star that's moving and getting brighter. It would move fast, and then it would kind of dim out, and then it came straight down, and the car starts to vibrate. And then wasn't there something with a light that was shining?
There's different parts of this now. In the beginning, what's the guy's name? Tippett? Tippett. He said that there was actually 9 lights on it, and they were circling the area. And then he said there was 1 light. I mean, he changed his story a couple of times on that, the light.
But basically, it kind of went down behind the woods, but they said that there was at least 1 strong beam of light that you could see through the woods. And you can see it there.
There was actually bushes 12 feet high in front of the car from where they landed. And
they could see the light through that. It kind of was shining a beam of light. And so then later the patrol car comes back, the 2 officers, Clark and Loeb, they return. And just as they're coming back, that light turns off. So right away, you got to say somebody intelligent turned this light off, or something intelligent turned the light off.
That was at 10:15 p.m.
Okay. So at that point, what did they do? They told the police, and they went to look for it, or?
Well, the police had actually been driving by, and the guy in the car hit the brake light, so that the police would see the brake light. And then that's how they came there. And when they came there, that's when the light went out, He told the police that there was something strange going on. And they started to take a walk down there.
So Tibbetts and the cops went to where the light was to check out
about
what that was.
About 150 yards, they said it was. They got about 100 yards down, and that's when they started tooting the horn. They heard the horn blowing and that there was something else going on. They ran back to the car, and that's when the alleged creature was there. So they never actually seen the UFO. And secondly, I mean, 150 feet, the thing didn't take off. So, you know, again, when you're dealing with UFOs, they can just vanish.
But what happened was there was the 2 women and the 2 kids still in the car.
Because
the men had left with the police. And So what they see at this point, and that's why they were blowing the car horn, is something came out of the woods.
Right, right.
Right. So what was that? What came out of the woods at that point? It was something. They said it was an immense animal or creature, something that was black, featureless humanoid creature, over 6 foot tall.
Right. And it was shaped like this.
Yeah, and hairy though, like a gorilla.
Like it was a Bigfoot, yeah.
Yeah, a Bigfoot, or what they said at the time was they kind of reminded them of a gorilla. What did it do to the car? What happened that frightened them?
Put scratch marks on the car.
Okay.
It was shaking the car, put scratch marks on the car, and they said it sounded like it was on top of the car.
Yeah.
And then it took off.
Can you imagine being these two women with these two small kids, and there's some 7 foot thing scratching up your car and shaking it?
The girl, Anita Hathaway, whatever, she didn't see it.
Okay.
Because she was sitting in the back seat. And she, the other girl was the one screaming and yelling and carrying on.
Okay, so when they started honking the horn, then the creature kind of moved back into the brush.
Right.
And at that point, they said that it disappeared and the UFO took off, and the UFO disappeared, and it took off at an incredible speed. So maybe it was the one woman who saw that, the other in the back seat didn't. But then the officers come running back because they've been honking the horn.
Right. Well, at that time, the police said, let's get the hell out of here. We'll go down to the station. Because when you're talking about animals being there and this and that, police said we could do better back there. So they went down and they started discussing it down there then.
Yeah. The one police officer, when he was running on the beach, he actually dropped his gun.
Right.
And he didn't even stop to pick it up because they were honking the horn so frantically. He didn't stop to pick his gun up and his service revolver, and he kept running back to the car. Now, what happened, though, is that now by 7 a.m., the state police and the Air Force was there.
Well, but before you get to that, John, okay, study of police records for the day revealed that many other people, including a physician and other people, seen an object and strange lights in the sky where they're saying
there was a lot of other witnesses besides that they found out about. So when now you got Project Blue Book there, which was the Air Force, and you have the state police there, they found some impressions in the sand.
Blue Book didn't get there till the 3rd.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, the next day they called the PA. Well, what happened the next day, Patrolman Wilson and Canfield went into the area to check out everything, and they found 2 triangular shaped impressions about 8 inches deep.
Okay.
And they found what appeared to be, they called it claw marks, which were also 5 to 6 feet apart. It was like a creature walking. And they took cast up.
What's the normal gait of a person walking? So if you were walking, how far apart is a person's feet? 3-4 feet maybe?
3-4 feet, yeah.
So the gait was like 5-6 feet.
5 or 6 feet, right.
So you're talking about something that takes some long strides.
Right.
It would have to be taller, 6-7 feet, with some real long strides. And that went straight from the car to the woods.
To the water. In the water, in the woods to the water.
Yeah. So it was basically what they had said.
Right.
They saw this creature and it went off into the brush. That's where they found these footprints spaced apart, bigger spacing than, say, a human would have.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so when they got there, they also find an unidentified clear liquid substance near the indentations. They collected that.
So where the footprints were, there was some sort of a gooey type liquid. Now, we got pictures of that also.
Right.
If you, take a look at this. This is an actual picture from 1966. It was a Polaroid, and it says that there's a sticky, non-evaporating droppings found in the tripod area, and you can see it. That was some sort of stuff that was where the footprints were.
When I read you what the Project Blue Book said, you'll really like what I got to say with that.
Okay,
it's interesting.
All right. So with those footprints, there was some goo in those footprints. So what happened after that?
Okay, so they took the impressions and all of that, and then one of the guys that took the pictures and the impressions, he became sick at 8:30 that night. I mean, I don't really know what it has to do with that, but he had
it may have been from these liquids. He might have touched it and stuff. He got very sick. One of the police officers.
102.6 was his temperature.
Yeah, and that was a police officer.
Right, and his wife was a nurse, so. Another interesting thing with that is there was a large freshly gouged area of wood and bark. Exact dimensions not recorded was noted in the willow tree close to the picnic area. The bark was not found on the ground at the time, so whatever it was took the bark out, okay?
So it just kind of clawed it?
Right. The gouged area was seen by LaBelle and Patrolman Gannon. They did another study on the area on July 6th of 1968, and it revealed that the tree had been cut down and removed.
Yeah, so 2 years after this happened, they went back and they removed the tree.
Well, they removed the tree prior to that. They went back and looked at it 2 years later.
Okay.
And the tree was removed and the other trees were still there.
Yeah,
all
so
the other
only
trees.
that one.
Right.
And again, that reminds me of the Bucks County case that I was talking about with the police officer and the woman that saw these probes come down in her tree. It was about 2-3 years later, the landlord, he cut the tree down.
Right.
He said he had to prune it because it was too close to the house, but he basically cut a 25-foot tree down to 3 feet, and he got rid of the evidence at that point.
And also, considering the Bigfoot creature, 3 days later in Erie, a woman observed an unusual creature in the streets of Erie. Another woman in the area saw a similar creature that same week. She reports that she was driving down 3rd Street late at night when she seen the creature and stopped her car. She reports that the creature came up to her car and pounded on the hood and then moved into the darkness. Okay.
Yeah. Now the one witness though who was in the car that had seen all of this, the one that was in the front seat, Mrs. Clem.
Right.
They had her interviewed by a psychiatrist.
Right.
And he said her testimony was true.
Right.
She was not making this
Right.
up.
Right.
And when Blue Book showed up, the Air Force, they assigned case number 10798. So if anyone wants to Google, look up Blue Book case 10798. You will get this Presque Island case. Let me tell you something that happened years later, because we talk about how there's always somebody comes forward to take credit, right?
Right.
So what happened years later was up in Erie, Action News 24 was doing this Erie flashback series talking about older cases, and when they brought this case up, these people come forward and say it was a hoax. There was a local truck driver, Mr. Kim Faulkner, who had created a papier-mâché hot air balloon that was seen, and that his brother also confirmed that they did this, and they were afraid to come forward at the time, so they had kept quiet. But see what happens though, that's what the people remember because it was on the news. But then the further investigation after they said that was, looking into it, you find that, we go back and look at the weather, the wind patterns.
I have the weather right here.
Yeah, so the wind and the weather patterns would have blown this balloon completely away from Beach 6. It's not even possible because it would have gone in the opposite. Balloons can't go against the wind.
Right, they go the other way.
They would go with the wind, and it would have been miles away. So the witness, and it doesn't match the whole thing with the searchlight, and a balloon can't have this heavy searchlight and then just.
Well, I think too you could get a couple minutes of fame for that.
Yeah,
and I think that's what's a lot of the people. It's a couple minutes of fame. I mean. Where did the Bigfoot come from? Where, the thing set down. I mean, there was 12 prints in it, like your prints right here. I mean, 12 inches down in the ground. How could a paper balloon do that?
Yeah.
I mean, but again, I mean, like I say, they got their 12 minutes or whatever, and that was it. I mean, they was on TV and the whole nine yards.
Well, one of the other things too is they found fur, right?
Right.
And there's a picture. We have a picture of that shows the police. I don't know if that's a parkie or a police officer standing there. He's got a patch on his shoulder, but it says the tree trunk, which was later found. They found hair pieces on it. This is August 8th of 1966. That up on the tree trunk, there's arrows here. You can see where the bark is gone, like you had mentioned.
Right.
And there's this hair.
That's why they took the tree. That's why they took the tree, so nobody could come back and do it. They probably removed the tree 2 or 3 days after the incident.
Yeah. Now there was, like you said, there was 8 other witnesses, at least 8 that had seen it. One of the other witnesses was the son of the police chief right there.
Right.
And what he said he saw was that he got on the scene, he saw the car stuck in the sand, he saw the large claw marks that tore up the top and side of the vehicle, and he said they were pretty deep and long. He saw these odd-shaped footprints with an odd gel that was in every footprint.
Right.
Right. And then he was stopped by the state troopers and told, "You got to get out of here. That liquid in the footprints is radioactive."
Right.
So that was their way of scaring him off.
Yeah, but they proved it wasn't radioactive. Nothing was radioactive.
But they wanted to scare him off. So, but he saw the two women crying. They were hysterically crying, and it's weird. So, not weird, but odd. One of the witnesses up there at the time was Fred Lane. Fred Lane, our guy from Erie that's up there. We do the conference with him. So here he made a statement that he observed a hovering red object that had a pulsating type light on it, and what he saw take off across Lake Erie at a tremendous speed.
Well, Lake Erie's been, we've been getting quite a bit of cases up there.
Yeah.
And, like Terry says, it's possible that they got something going on in Lake Erie.
Yeah, well, Terry Ray, who was on an earlier show with us, an attorney, did some analysis. And
he feels there's an underground base up in that area.
Based on the reports that there's a base under the water is what it is. But there was another, and this is kind of a strange case that happened at the same time with this. This truck driver by the name of Steve Duder, he owned his own trucking business. He said he was driving at night at that same time, and he said all of a sudden the cab of his truck got illuminated. There was this bright light on it, and he saw this enormous sphere that lit up the highway. Now the strange thing is, when he got home, he had traveled 120 miles with an 18-wheel rig. And it took him under an hour, and he also made it back to his house. In 120 miles back into his driveway in less than an hour. So, but then he said he had some strange things happen that, like with his mind, he seemed to be able to project his thoughts and influence people.
A lot of times when you have an encounter, say, of the fourth kind, you actually get telepathy. You can get the powers. A lot of people poltergeist cases, poltergeist activity starts. They're saying now that Barney and Betty actually had poltergeist activity that was never brought out. I guess Martin just brought that out not too long ago.
Okay.
But that was a lot of the cases. People actually get paranormal.
So somehow they're able. So whatever happens on these abductions, however, they're examining us, and they're not cutting people open most of the time like we do with our surgery. They seem to tap into our brains, and then that kind of leaves us with some extra abilities, that we then are psychic.
And I think they may do an implant, which actually does that.
Well, that could be also.
The implant actually develops a psychic ability, which they can actually watch what you're doing,
So one of the things, what happened when the Blue Book people, the Air Force people showed up? Didn't they contaminate the scene?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, tell us if you remember what happened.
I'll just tell you I'll tell you their conclusions. That's even better. Okay. No evidence. This is from both Major Hall and Mr. Palmer or whatever. They checked the area for radioactivity. None. Okay. Project Blue Book says no evidence exists to relate to the damp areas and the indentations found on the beach to the sighting. Considering the indentations, the following comments also presented. No object could have made a stable landing without at least a third appendage. Sand should have been a lot more compressed for the alleged landing. Portions of the ground indentations appear to be uncovered, not totally compressed as they should have been. By definite sign of the vehicle departing the area in the sign, no evidence or heat blast or sand being disturbed by aerodynamic vehicle. Rough weight calculations place weight of the alleged object at approximately 1,500 pounds total weight. This being a static load estimated calculated to two-legged object. Acrylic residence, they're saying it was acrylic residence was present in the large sample taken in indentation. This was attributed to the acrylic lacquer that was sprayed on the indentation prior to the cast being molded. So they're saying that the liquid inside was actually sprayed there before they took it. That's what they're thinking.
But yet it was there in every one of those footprints. And when they say that the sand should have been blown, because we're using our mentality that we would have a jet where this is anti-gravity, it just lifts up. It's total, and it doesn't. You know, if you remember the Roswell, some of the stories on that, the one that we actually captured, people said it kind of just hovered there.
Right.
They had it in there, and you could kind of just lift it up with your hand, yet the thing weighed tons.
But here's the best one. Urine was distinctly present in all the soil samples. So actually somebody, you know. Now here's...
Or the creature.
Right. Well, they're saying now no correlation can be, this is what his final thing is. No correlation can be found to exist between the three factors of the case under consideration. Light, indentations, monster, light. So they're saying there was no monster. What they're saying a monster was a bear, okay? no evidence relates, well, instead of really getting into it. What they're saying is that they feel that everybody was actually lying.
Yeah, but you know they said it was an animal, but yet the I think it was the chief of police. Yeah, he said that there are no bears or large animals on the peninsula. Right. And the interesting thing that I found typical, the Air Force Major Hall, when the state police were making those casts and they were taking pictures and stuff, the Air Force Hall came over and he kicked sand into all of those prints, kind of like kicked it over, destroying the evidence at that point, even though some casts were made. He took control of the casts and then took the pictures from the police. We need this for Project Blue Book. Which is the mistake made on so many of those cases. They turn it over because they said, well, you're the experts, you got to look at it, you got to have it, and you never get it back. And you never get a good conclusion back as to what happened. But, you know, it seemed interesting that that's what they had said had happened. But, you know, they tried to make it out to be, you know, an animal had caused it. But NICAP, which was the big agency at the time, like MUFON, NICAP sent 5 of their investigators there to Lake Erie, and they concluded that it was unexplained and that the creature was some sort of a Bigfoot, Sasquatch type
Well, that's when they start saying there was no such thing as Sasquatch. See, I think the government is well aware of Bigfoot, and I think the government's been involved with Bigfoot since back in the 60s.
And there are a handful of cases where they're present during a UFO.
And you know, and again, the government. I mean, this was one of the famous cases here too. But the government would have lied about it too if they didn't have so many witnesses to it.
Now, do you know what the people up in Erie did 10 years later? This is really interesting, and I've got to try to contact Fred Lane and see if it's still there. 10 years later, in 1976, the store owners and merchants there, they collected $2,600 and they constructed a UFO landing pad in the community park that's overlooking Lake Erie. It opened on July 4th of, I guess that would be 77, and they created a staging area for a Martian landing for UFOs.
I didn't hear that.
So, yeah, they did that. It was 10 years after this case. So I'm curious, is that still there? Does anybody remember?
I know Sam and I went up there on a case where allegedly we had a case going up there on 79, and then there was a case came in on Lonnie Monsters and Mysteries or whatever, about a guy that's seen 2 little Ethiopians running across the street, and they had belts on and this and that, and they ran into the woods. And Sam and I went up there to look into that, and we went to a veterinarian clinic. And this is interesting because we went to the this is where these people are, but we go to this veterinarian clinic, walk in and say, hi, we're from MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, and we'd like to go back in your woods there. We had a UFO report. Could you please sit down for a minute? The doctor came out and sat down and started talking to us, telling us that one of his people was abducted. Wow. I mean, it was 100%. These people was right behind us. The doctor
came out was cooperating with
you. 100%. You know, they'll do whatever we got to do.
What we're going to do on this case is next year in 2016, it'll be the focus of our Erie UFO conference. Just like this year, it's the focus of the Kecksburg conference. And if you want more information on that, people, you just go to MUFONPA.com. The 3 conferences are there. This year we're talking about Kecksburg. Next year we're talking about this case, the Presque Island. And you know, in this chapter, we name about a dozen witnesses.
Right,
I don't know if they're all still alive. It's 50 years. I want to try to track these people down and then try to get them to speak at the conference. But that's all we got for this week, Fred. But we'll try to track down these witnesses and have them speak at our conference. So thanks for covering the Presque Island case for us.
Yep.
Thanks, Fred.
You're welcome.